Megan Berry, and Megan is the marketing manager for Klout, and I think she was going to show you a few of the tools in Klout and see what you can do with them. So, welcome, Megan.
Hey guys. So first of all, can you hear me? Yes, very loud. Okay. Hi everybody, and like Laura said, like definitely if you have a question as I'm talking, if anything doesn't make sense, if something occurs to you, like just shout out a question, raise your hand. Like obviously, you know, great group. Like we wanna keep it lively. Like I don't want to just talk at you guys if something comes up. So I'm here to talk about Klout and online influence. If you haven't heard of Klout before, we measure influence across the social web. So you can go, if you have a Twitter handle, you can go look up your Klout score on Klout.com, and your profile will probably already be scored, and you can look it up. It's a measure from 0 to 100. And that brings us to an interesting question, like what is influence? Like how can you measure it online? What does that mean? And we get a lot of questions about this and a lot of misunderstanding. So first, like a couple things it's not. It's not a popularity contest. Klout anti-influence is not about, you know, like choosing a prom queen or king. It's about who's impacting people. So also really relevant for Twitter, it's not about followers. And this comes up a lot in Twitter. I've actually had people introduce themselves to me with how many followers they have as like an indication of their importance. And sure, it's a metric that matters in some way, but it's not the end-all be-all. If I do a contest where I'm going to give, you know, a vacation to Hawaii to like one of the followers who follows me the next day, I'm probably going to get a lot of followers. It doesn't mean I become more influential. There's lots of ways to game the system, and not all followers are created equal. It's very different if I get followed by, you know, someone who's a thought leader who's really paying attention to what I'm saying than someone who is following, you know, 50,000 people and is really never gonna see what I'm talking about. So that being said, what we believe is influence is the ability to drive action. So if I talk about my favorite restaurant in the city, and one of you goes to eat there tonight, I've influenced you. That's real influence. If I tweet about a link and you go read this article, that's influence. And that's the kind of metrics we want to track. Obviously knowing if you go to the restaurant, that's harder, but knowing if you @message me, if you retweet me, those are actually things we can look at. So, and then just another point, idea of that some people are influential and can change others' actions isn't a new idea. You know, that's the reason why celebrities have been asked to endorse products. You know, why people try to give journalists free products that they can try out, because there are certain people that influence actions. And that's something we've always had in society. The difference now in this day and age is that influence for everyday people is becoming measurable. Since the social web is so open, I can see that someone, you know, tweeted out a link and then 10 other people retweeted it and it spread, you know, to X number of people. Like that's something that Klout can actually measure. And in some ways it's an exciting time that we can do that and actually see sort of the interactions and conversations that have previously been hidden. So why do you care about influence? So first of all, to measure your own success. A lot of companies and individuals get on Twitter because they're supposed to be on Twitter or Facebook or any social network. And they don't really stop to think, what are their goals? Like what does success mean to them? Now I'm not saying Klout's the end-all be-all metric of that, because you're, as a business, you have to think about, you know, if you have revenue goals, etc. But it's important to look at metrics that measure engagement and not just follower count. So two, understand your network. Who in your network is influential on the topics you care about? Who should you be reaching out to? And that goes to three, like know who to connect to. If you reach just the 10 most influential people in your network, that will often be as powerful as reaching everyone. So it's really like there's these sort of, let's see, we get here, like if you look at a network, there's certain nodes who are very powerful at spreading to the rest of the network. And that's really what influence is about. Like who's that one person who I should tap to get my message spread? And what Klout does is we look at every single interaction between every person, and that's sort of bi-directionally as well. Like, someone may influence me, but I may not influence them back. Like, you have to look at both directions and look at every message. And so did we measure social actions? Now, what does that mean? We look at, in Twitter, it's retweets, @messages, being put on lists. And a little bit of follower count, but not as much that. Clicks, conversations, we measure Facebook as well. Actually, side note, one question that always comes up is how do I raise my Klout score? So the one thing I can absolutely say for that is if you connect to Facebook and you are on Facebook, you do something on Facebook, your Klout score will likely raise because we're able to then measure a new network. So if you go to klout.com and you add Facebook, that's one tip to raise your Klout score. Other than that, be genuine, engage with people, create good content, etc. So I've kind of been hinting at this, but what is Klout? So the standards for influence online, we have over 1,000 API partners. We're in Co-Tweet, we're in Hootsuite, we're on Huffington Post. Just a number of partners use us as a useful, Klout can be a filter. If you have thousands of incoming messages, it can be helpful to start by filtering to see people with, above a certain Klout score. And those may be the messages you want to respond to first. Maybe they're the only messages you have time to respond to. I mean, obviously we all want to respond to every message, but it's sometimes not possible. And then we've worked with big brands to reach out to influencers as well, and I'll discuss that a little more in a little bit. But, so the Klout score, 0 to 100, 100 being the most influential. Actually on the left there, Ramya is one of Klout's scientists, so that proves to you that we are not biased because even our own scientists have to work hard to get a high Klout score, and she's observing the system, not interacting in it. And then you can see like Jack Cafferty, Barack Obama, to sort of look at that gauge. And Barack Obama is an interesting example because people say like, how can Barack Obama not be like 100? And that gets to, in some senses, the limitations of what we're doing. We measure influence across the social web. We don't measure absolute influence. So we're not going to try to pretend that we're taking into account the fact that Barack Obama can like hit nuclear weapons and we're all going to die. So, this system is as useful as the metrics we put into it. So it's very useful for measuring influence across the social web. It's not a measure of offline influence, except to the extent that that is sort of seen online. So score components. So these are the three sort of sub-scores we look at when measuring Klout. True reach. So this is again getting at that issue of what do followers really mean. So what we do is we cut down your followers to really the true reach, which means your engaged audience. So these are the people who are really interacting with you on a daily basis, and in essence the people who will read a tweet if you send it out, or will read a Facebook status. So that's what we consider your true reach. Amplification is the probability that your message will spread into other networks. So basically, when you send out a tweet, how far is it going to spread? And that's where the amplification gets at. Network is how influential your network is. And that's an interesting one because you could only be followed by 5 people. But if those 5 people are the most influential people on social media and they're interacting with you and they're engaging with you, you can actually be very influential. And that happens sometimes. There's certain people who are a little bit behind the scenes, but the right people know that they matter, and those are actually very influential people, if a little bit hidden in that network. So one very interesting facet of what we do is topical influence. Because when you get beyond the Michael Jordan level of influence, influence is topical. You may listen to what I have to say on Klout, but you may not listen to what I have to say on cooking, because you probably shouldn't. And that's what we're trying to get at. There's people who are topical experts, and they have very strong influence in certain areas, but not in others. So that's what we get at. These are general categories, but we can actually drill down. If you look at your Klout.com profile, you can see what you're influential in, And those are the topics, not that you talk about the most, but that you actually get the most engagement on. So they can be specific, like social media, I guess isn't that specific, but you can actually become influential on a specific conference right after a conference happens or something like that. Or you could be influential on high heel shoes. But that's something we're able to look at, and it's interesting because within your own group of friends, you know that there are certain people who you look to for where to go to eat tonight, and there are certain people you look to for what computer you should buy, and they're not the same people. So that's something we're trying to get at. So this is a great quote here. For a service to succeed, it needs to attract those early adopters who can help propel a strong population. So again, that gets at like, why do you care about influence? Those early adopters who can propel a strong population, those are influencers. And if you're looking to propel your business, yourself, your personal brand, if you reach the right influencers, that can make the difference. So this is an example of something that Klout does that we've started doing. They're called influencer campaigns, where companies will reach out to us. And for instance, Virgin America, they were launching a new route to Toronto, and they wanted to get influencers in social media involved. Like, how do we get people to care about what's happening here? So we found the very top influencers along the route, San Francisco, LA, and Toronto, who were experts in travel and travel and Toronto itself, etc., and offered them a free round-trip flight on this new route. So that's really exciting. Now you've been tweeting forever, like your friends make fun of you because you're on Twitter all the time, and now these influencers get to say, you know what? Actually, it makes a difference. Brands now want to reach me. I got a free round-trip flight, and we've recently done something, with Audi. With Disney, lots of big brands who want to reach topical influencers because they know that you can make a difference. You can impact people. So, anyway, just to quickly describe what a campaign looks like. So, we'll target people based on topical influence. So, say, a camera manufacturer comes to us, we would find people who are influential specifically on cameras. Invite them to participate. Usually what something like that would look like is actually giving them a camera to try out. And we have a very strong code of ethics, so I should mention this. When we give someone a perk, we never require them to do anything. It will never affect their Klout score. They can take this camera and never talk about it. They can say how much they hate it. It's sort of up to the brand to believe in their product to use influencer marketing. Because that's what it's about. You have to say, this is a great product, and if I just get it into the hands of the right people, I know it will go well. And then, of course, assuming they like the product, they talk about it, the message gets amplified, and you actually see a huge reach. So this brings us to something, well, Klout is, in essence, is a meritocracy based on the quality of your content. So what we're looking at is, if you're that 17-year-old kid who's, in his parents' basement spending every afternoon trying out cameras, really working to understand why one camera is better than another, blogging about this, tweeting about this, becoming the expert on cameras, we're here to recognize that and say, that's important. People are listening to you about cameras, and that means something. So that's the basic presentation. I'd love to hear your guys' questions on Klout, what's come up,